In this video, we're talking about how Valve's driving force with Steam hardware and Steam OS is the statement, it just works. And then after that, I've got a recommendation for a quick little survival horror game I played on Steam Deck. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about Steam hardware. I hope you're having a great week playing a ton of video games. This video is sponsored by Cook Unity. 2 years ago, I was overweight and out of shape, so I started a fitness journey, and man, I wish I had Cook Unity back then. And that's because it makes hitting my protein goals dead simple. I just take this tray of amazing short rib ragu right out of the fridge, peel the plastic back a little bit, microwave it for 2.5 minutes, and it's ready to eat. And again, it's amazing. Chef Fabio Viviani is a monster in the kitchen, and Cook Unity's fitness fuel menu really appeals to me. It's curated by a sports dietitian and features meals that have 30+ grams of protein, and that's on top of complex carbs and healthy fats. Basically, it supports energy, endurance, and most importantly, recovery. The menu features high quality meals, snacks, and breakfast, so you can stay fueled throughout the entire day. Cook Unity removes the stress of meal prep, so you can spend more time training, recovering, and living your life. Cook Unity is offering my viewers 50% off their first order. Click the link in the description and use the code DECKREADY50 to try it out. Once again, huge shout out to Cook Unity for sponsoring this video. But with the intro out of the way, let's get into the main topic of today's video, which is that Valve has a driving statement going forward with Steam hardware and Steam OS, and that statement is the quote, "It just works." Now, I know that one has a little bit of a bad reputation because of Todd Howard. Right when they announced Fallout 76, he infamously, I guess, got on stage and said, "It just works." And then the game came out and nothing worked. It was a disaster. I was a huge fan of it and I was really disappointed. They eventually righted the ship, and that's one of my most played games ever. But man, it was a low point being there for the launch of Fallout 76. So hopefully Valve can redeem the reputation of the statement, "It just works" with Steam OS and Steam hardware. I'm pulling this from an interview with the website Game Developer, and the first thing they covered was how verification is going to work on the Steam machine because, you know, on the Steam Deck, it's not necessarily the best system in the world. I'd argue that it's one of the worst possible systems you could implement because it doesn't include performance into the equation in any way. As long as the game boots up and has readable text, I mean, you've got a pretty good shot at getting your game Steam Deck verified. And, you know, that's bitten a lot of Steam Deck users in the butt trusting that system with games like The Last of Us Part 1, Spider-Man 2. I mean, there's a myriad of games. I could just go on all day listing games that were verified at launch that should never have been verified. Like they just weren't really good on the Steam Deck at all. So when it comes to the Steam machine, I like the direction that they're going in. Here's what Lawrence had to say when he was asked about it in the interview. "Developers hoping for a Steam machine verified badge can expect fewer constraints than Steam Deck verification. One easy rule of thumb is that if your title is verified on the Steam Deck, it'll be verified on the Steam machine." They also talked about how on Steam machine it's just going to be a lot simpler because the only metric they really have to worry about is whether or not the game will launch on Steam OS. It works very similarly to that on the Legion Go S. Like if it's going to launch, it'll give you the check mark. It's a blue check mark instead of a green check mark. I wish they would just move that across to the Steam Deck, because if you're not factoring in performance in any way, really the only thing I have to know is if the game is going to launch, and then I can look at Steam Deck HQ, Deck Wizard, any of the other gaming YouTube channels out there that cover performance on the Steam Deck to see whether or not the game is worth playing. Because right now, because of all the stringent requirements you have to follow as a developer to get your game Steam Deck verified, I mean, yeah, it's cool that text size can be increased or whatever in your game and make it easier to read on the Steam Deck. But what's more important to me is knowing whether or not the game will launch. And there are so many games that have an unsupported circle with a line through it that work completely fine on the Steam Deck. So overall, I think the entire thing needs to be overhauled. And I'm glad that at least starting with the Legion Go S and eventually the Legion Go 2 and of course the Steam machine, they're gonna fix it. They're just not talking about whether or not right now if that's going to make its way over to the Steam Deck, but like, I think whatever system they implement on the Steam machine should just be ported to every device. Does it launch? Yes. Then it gets a check mark, and then everyone else can worry about the details because that's how it's set up already, because it doesn't factor in performance. So that covers the first part of the "it just works" statement, but the second part of it, I'd argue, is a lot more interesting because they thought of it from top to bottom with the Steam controller and its design. Specifically, they were talking about the puck and why they felt that thing was necessary. If you haven't heard about the puck, basically what it is like a charging dock for your Steam controller. So you plug it in via USB to your PC, you dock your controller on it, it'll stay charged when you're not using it, and it also provides a direct connection point for the controller. So if you don't have a really good Bluetooth card or adapter in your PC that you're using the Steam controller with, you'll get a much much better latency-free connection by using the puck, and then it also doubles as a charging dock for the controller, which is excellent. I don't think people are going to lose it because most people will either keep it near their TV or at their desk where their PC or Steam machine is already set up. So I think the puck is awesome at the end of the day, like 10 out of 10 design there. But the reason the puck exists is pretty surprising. So here's what Valve had to say. While Bluetooth is a great wireless connection method, we found in our testing that people's home wireless environments and PC Bluetooth capabilities are highly variable. Clogged networks, wireless interference, increased latency when using multiple Bluetooth devices, etc. I am so glad they brought this up as someone who uses a living room PC a lot. So whether you have either one of those like USB Bluetooth adapters that have a long cord, or it's one of those micro ones that go in the front port of your PC, or you have Bluetooth built into your motherboard, the unifying feature of all of those different Bluetooth connection methods is if you're on your phone, if you're more than 2 feet away from the PC, if you're using Bluetooth to connect to your AirPods, if you're doing anything that uses any form of wireless connection, it destroys the Bluetooth connection of the controller to your PC. And you can test this if you have a controller like the 8-Bit Do Ultimate 2. It has Bluetooth or 2.4 gigahertz mode. Just connect the controller to your PC and test this in a game like Dying Light the Beast, for example. 2.4 gigahertz, every input registers. You can walk away from the PC pretty far. It'll stay connected. You'll get very little input lag. Then if you connect via Bluetooth, you get insane input lag. You get missed inputs. It only works very close to your PC. And I noticed this with Dying Light the Beast specifically when I was using two-handed weapons. I was trying to do the combo where you swing, hold the trigger to charge up an attack and do a windmill. It didn't work a lot of the time with my DualSense Edge connected with Bluetooth, but when I connected the 8-Bit Do Ultimate 2 wireless controller and I used 2.4 gigahertz, never missed an input, and it was awesome. So yeah, all of that stuff really matters when it comes to connecting the controller to your PC, and they even took it one step further. They said another problem we set out to solve was the fact that dedicated wireless receivers that are plugged directly into the back of a PC near other USB ports can create interference issues. Adding the charging capability encourages people to leave the puck in a place where it's likely to have minimal interference while providing a really easy charging experience. So that's the next way that It Just Works statement kind of factored into their design. And I think that's really smart because they're not like tricking you. It's not malicious. They're just encouraging you to leave the puck in a wide open space where it's not going to have any blockage from getting a signal back and forth from your controller. So they're giving you a reward for doing that by letting you charge the controller with that dock. Now, if the battery life is too good, who knows? You might let it fall off your desk. You might let it fall behind your desk, and then it hopefully has some protection in place to not cause any issues. But I like the line of thinking where they're going to encourage people to leave it in a space where it'll get a good connection, but they're giving you a reward for that by making it a charging dock for the controller. It's a win-win that just works. And then the third way that they've implemented the It Just Works statement is going back to the very beginning of SteamOS with the Steam Deck, and it has to do with flat packs. You know, I love flat packs. I love the Discover Store. I love that I can type in vacuum tube, the YouTube app you guys always ask me about, Discord, whatever. I hit download, it installs, it's good to go. I don't have to worry about it. It works like the App Store on my phone or my Mac computer. And the cool thing is it's there if you want the simplicity of using that, but if you want to download stuff from GitHub using the console, they don't block you from doing that. But the fact that they included the Discover Store as the de facto app store in desktop mode on SteamOS for Steam Deck means a lot of people are going to interact with it. And if you're a developer making a Linux app, it gives you an easy place to put your app for people to find it, download it, install it, and use it. So even though SteamOS isn't the biggest Linux distro, there's still an encouragement factor there when you're talking about the Discover Store, because there are a lot of users on SteamOS who want an easy way to download and install apps. So Valve put that there, and then developers were encouraged to use that store. So while they might not package in apps like Vacuum Tube or Discord or any of the other apps that a lot of people download, they have an easy way to get them just pre-installed with SteamOS, and that's a cool way to make sure it just works. And then the fourth way they've let this statement guide them is through the SD card slot on the Steam Deck, the Steam Machine, and the Steam Frame, because they're encouraging people to install as many of their games as they possibly can. Theoretically, you'd want your most used games on the SD card, and then when you're done on your Steam Deck, you just pop the SD card out, you slot it into your Steam Machine, bam, all your games are right there. You want to use your VR headset with the Steam Frame or whatever third-party device you install SteamOS on, you slot the SD card into that, bam, your entire library is right there. And I'm sure they thought about it like it would benefit them a little bit to use the class of SD card that the Nintendo Switch 2 uses because it's a lot faster, it's closer to the speeds of an SSD, but then they thought about it and they were like, then it doesn't just work. You need an entire new micro SD card just for the Steam machine or just for the Steam frame. So even though we're taking a hit on the speeds, it makes it more simple and convenient to just support the SD card that we told people to get for the Steam Deck. And I think that's going to be a smart move overall. And that kind of helps them in the future, I would say, like with the Steam Deck 2, that's when you can think about updating to SD Express. And then with the Steam Machine 2 and Steam Frame 2, you do the same thing, keep it generationally, cohesive with all these devices, and I think things will just work out because it just works. I think it's awesome that this is all being qualified under one statement now, because this is something I praised the Steam Deck and SteamOS for from the very beginning. It's not that it was genuinely new or exciting for being a new product, right? It's that they made things you could do previously on devices like Aya Neo handhelds or the GPD handhelds a lot simpler, cheaper, and more accessible for people, and I'm glad that's kind of moving its way up to the living room PC, the VR headset, and whatever other device SteamOS ends up on in the near future. If you're new here, I like to round out these videos with a game recommendation if I've been playing something new and cool on my Steam Deck, and I've got a great one today with Carnival Massacre. I was scrolling through the survival horror tag on Steam and I went to new and trending, and this was on the list. Towards the bottom, I saw the art, I thought it looked really cool. I saw that it was PS1 style survival horror and that it was only $5, so I took a gamble, and I'm glad I did because this game rules. The plot setup is really simple. It takes place in the 90s. You play as this teenage goth chick whose sister disappeared at the local carnival, so you go to find her. It really reminded me of the original Terrifier, like not in the gore sense or like the crazy over the top practical effects sense, but like it has the same vibe as Terrifier if you mixed it with Silent Hill, which you'll definitely think of the second you hear this game's theme song. And then once you make your way into the theme park, it's a pretty bog standard Resident Evil style game. There's multiple areas you have to access, and then you find key items to access those areas in other areas. So you do a lot of exploring, looking for items, finding guns, of course, and then making your way through this game. I mentioned that this game is an hour and a half long. For $5, I think it's worth it. And it also encourages replayability because it's really easy. You find ammo all over the theme park. You also get coins from killing enemies who also aren't damage sponges or anything. So you get like 3 or 4 coins per enemy. Then you go to a save room and there's one of those like fortune teller machines. You can buy ammo from him or you can buy healing items, and it costs 1 coin to save. But by the end of the game, I had like 60 coins. And I think to get an S ranking, you have to never heal, which shouldn't be that hard because a lot of the enemies move really slow. So it encourages replayability in 2 ways. One, by being short. The other is you can play through it with different guns because you can use one gun throughout the entire game. I stuck with the shotgun, but I want to do a run with the pistol. You can do a run with the SMG. You can do a run with the sniper rifle. There's plenty of weapons in this game that you have access to, and it's not long enough to really give you a lot of time with all of them. So you kind of just get filtered into picking one of your favorites. A big plus for me is that the map is fully 3D. So when you're walking around, you're not going to run into invisible walls when you hit the JPEG sort of backgrounds that you would in the older Resident Evil games. And the controls have an option to do tank or modern. I thought the tank controls worked just fine, and I like that there's auto aim. So you just hold L1 to aim. There's a laser pointer like Resident Evil 4. You hit R1 to shoot. It's pretty simple. My one and only gripe with this game is that while the main narrative of you finding your sister is awesome, there's not that classic Resident Evil style storytelling of finding notes scattered throughout the park. I think if the developer, who's just one guy, went back and added in, kind of like some notes or stories to tell you why the park fell apart, why the monsters kind of went crazy, or gave you those little mini narratives for people who made their way throughout the park before you, that would go a long way and encourage exploration more than finding the plethora of different ammo items you find all over this park. But really, that's my only gripe. And there's also cool bonuses like costumes you can unlock for getting achievements. It has a really good settings menu that allows you to add different filters, like from 90s style survival horror games and stuff like that. So if you're into survival horror and you want a good sort of entry point, or just a game that really throws it back to the classics in terms of its gameplay and art style, can't recommend Carnival Massacre enough. So yeah, that's all I've got for you guys in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.